I'd like to call the Committee of the Whole meeting scheduled for February 24th, 2026 to order. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda from administration?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, members of council. With permission, I have one addition under new business, and that is a piece of correspondence that I got from Transportation Economic Corridors in an email, and it's about our AMWAP grant application. So,
Okay, and that's strictly under correspondence or closed session?
no, it can be an open session.
Open session, okay. Anything from council? Look for a motion to accept the communication as an addition to the agenda.
I'll make that motion, Your Worship.
Thank you. Call that question, all in favor? And acceptance of the amended agenda?
I can make that motion.
Councillor Cosby, thank you. Call that question, all in favor? Okay, great, thank you. We have no public input or delegations here tonight, but we do have a presentation with Sergeant DeHaan and members of our Citizens on Patrol. So, Mr. Van Buell, do you want to take it away, or?
Yeah, if I could, Mr. Mayor, kind of introduce the topic here. So recently, the RCMP have changed their process a bit on how they determine, or how they would like each detachment to determine their priority policing projects for the upcoming year. And one of the things that has been added is a little bit more public engagement on how we get to those. And so at the last council meeting, administration proposed kind of a process to go through. This is really step one, to have a discussion with the RCMP and council, and we invited the Citizens on Patrol group to get an idea where they're coming from, so we can put it all together. Yesterday we released the questionnaire, the Survey Monkey online, so that's out there. The step after that will be to for administration to attend with the Coffee with a Cop. We're making those arrangements. We're probably going to host that in the lobby of Penman Place. So it has some built-in traffic, if I can use that terminology. And then at the end of March, we'll invite Sergeant DeHaan back to have that final discussion with council. Here's kind of the results of everything that we heard from the public, from Coffee with a Cop, this discussion. Put together those priorities for council to debate a bit, and then make a final decision so that we can sign the final document and move it up the chain to K Division through Sergeant DeHaan's office. So today is more of a conversation about, you know, what everybody's seeing out in the public, you know, what are our pinch points, what are our areas of concern, and that'll start to form the conversation as we go forward.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm here. Just kind of
You're here because it's your turn.
all right, yeah, so the RCMP always has something called the APP, or the Annual Performance Plan, that would come out every spring. Our fiscal year obviously is from April 1st to March 31st every year. And during that time, we do have set policing priorities, usually 3 or 4 policing priorities that have subcategories underneath. This year, they kind of threw this at us last minute and said, hey, this is a new way we're going to do this. It should save us a bit of paperwork in the end, in my office, which is great. But it's now called the Community Priorities Plan instead of the APP, the CPP. The RCMP, they change acronyms for everything. And what it's doing is really putting it a lot more on community-led consultations. So it's more putting it back on the communities to hold either town halls or like these surveys to try to determine what kind of priorities that the public wants. And in these events, obviously, we are 100% able to attend and present on crime stats, what we're looking at, especially so the public can see where we're having issues and what our priorities should kind of like focus towards, which everybody knows crime reduction is the biggest one, prolific offenders. Yeah, that was our last year priority. It's one of our priorities last year, and I'm sure it'll spill into this year again, but it'll be up to basically the 3 communities, Redwater, Thorhild, and Sturgeon County, to decide what kind of priorities we're going to run this year. And then once the communities have come up with their individual priorities, then we'll work together and try to minimize them down to 3, maybe 4 priorities for the year. So just a reminder, our priorities for this year were crime reduction, prolific offenders, and that dealt with proactive interactions with public offenders, arrest warrants, patrols, and they wanted to increase some drug investigations. The other one was community engagement, which were town hall meetings. We only held one so far. It was a virtual one in Sturgeon County, which I don't know if anybody tuned in to see or Googled on YouTube. Apparently I'm on YouTube now. So interaction with community groups, and then media briefs and rave call-outs. Enforcement visibilities in communities was the third priority, which is violation tickets issued, Highway 2836 initiatives, and proactive check stops. And then, of course, just the member employee wellness and respect, and that's just team building activities and events for our members. So that's what we dealt with last year, and I think we did pretty good with our numbers. It worked out pretty well, but I want to make sure that everybody can have their input this year, and hopefully we can develop good priorities again for another year. And, yeah.
Part of your commentary was liaising with community groups, so that brings us down to the Citizens on Patrol. The majority of your patrols, I understand, are usually later at night, although you do patrols any time of the day or afternoon or anything like that, correct?
That's right.
We can go any time of the day. Our only issue is membership. The more people we get, the more we can get out.
Patrols, yeah.
And it would be nice to see some younger people volunteer. It would help a lot. And like, when we do our patrols, if there's an issue, we have a number to contact the RCMP. We do the town, all the streets, all the back alleys. We go out as far as Waterdale Park, Juniper Hills, the whole industrial park, out to
Gas plant, Conifer gas plant.
out there. And night patrols, like I say, we have all our lighting, all the dark spots, hidden spots. We check all security locks on any gates to make sure if they have locks that they're locked. And if they're not locked, we try to see if there's anybody at the business at the time, and if not, we'll report it, we'll write it down, we log it on our iPad. And then once the patrol is over, that gets submitted to the RCMP, and we notify that our patrol is over, so nobody is under the impression something's happened to us, and we never come back from our patrol. And we do have some incentive things, and they're called Know Your Neighbors and Hello Neighbor cards that you can distribute to your neighbors if they want to get involved. So if they decide to go on a holiday, the neighbors can have their phone number if something's going on. It says to first notify the RCMP, then notify the neighbor if they're away from home. And that's just one of our issues, one of the things that we can give to help the community to get involved and be concerned and watch around what's going around in the neighborhood. And we also have these stickers that you can put on your windows, screen doors, and face out on the street. And I have a few, not with me today, but available at this time just to hand out if anybody wants them.
Anything through to COP or Sergeant Tahan? Floor is open, Council. Go ahead, Councillor.
Well, thanks for coming, and I thank you for what you do for the community. So with this incentive, you're gonna go door to door, or are you gonna mail them out?
These things, you're probably better off to get a hold of us to get these cards.
Are you gonna have the ability to put some of them in the businesses around town?
Yeah, we can do
You
that.
could do that,
And
yeah.
Yeah, that like IGA where the
Right.
and hub like that, so they can pick them up and have a free sign, because everybody likes something for free.
There are different types here. There's one with numerous, and then you got one here to an individual neighbor, depending on how they want to approach it.
And that's a Citizens on Patrol initiative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that would help with your policing with neighbors knowing who neighbors are.
It is very much so, and just for everybody's awareness, like Citizens on Patrol is a great asset that we use. When they're out and about, we notice that our call volume drops in that area, so we know where they've been. We have a fully marked truck that shows Citizens on Patrol, just the sight of it. I mean, criminals are avoiding it. They don't want to be around it. We've had several times where they've called in a suspicious vehicle that turned into something a lot more in the end. It's a great program, and we're really happy that we have this in our community, so.
So basically, go ahead, yep.
Also on the back of these cards, it does say, if you see suspicious activity at my house, report activity to RCMP 780-942-3600 or call 911, and then on the card it says to call me, like the homeowner.
Yep.
First thing you do is notify the police. And then both the phone numbers are on both of these cards.
So basically, tonight, we're looking for some policing priorities, things that you see or council is aware of or whatever, that would help Sergeant DeHaan and Mr. Van Buell try and identify some priorities where we would like to see policing focused. Now, I think Sergeant DeHaan talked about the prolific offender program, chasing bad guys when they're on early release or on bail, those kind of things and what have you. But does council have anything in their basket that they would like to pass on, or questions they would ask? Talkative group tonight. Yeah, go ahead,
I think
President Henry.
we're trying to do more daily patrol, because people come back and say, well, you guys don't patrol. Well, you're not up at 1 or 2 in the morning when we're out there. And we're finding now when we go out during the daily patrols, they see our trucks and they wave at us, they know we're out there. Because we get some of that feedback, you guys don't patrol enough, you're not out there. Well, they don't see us in the middle of the night. And that is a problem. Like, you get thrown quite a bit at that, you guys don't go out much. There's only 12 of us, and that's the problem.
And I understand your regulations and what have you are that you have to have 2 in your vehicle at any given time. And you don't engage, that's the other thing, you're strictly a reporting agency.
Yeah.
If I had to ask you, what would you think policing priorities for Redwater should be for the next year? Would you have something on the back of your mind you think should come forward?
Well, reduce the crime, I guess. I think they've done a fantastic job, because when I go on Rave and look at the map compared to other areas, they've reduced a lot of the crime in this area, I think, when you look at Rave, compared to the other areas. Compared to a year ago, like it's dropped a lot, I think.
And RAVE is a public program. It's sponsored by the RCMP. You can go online and download the app, and that gives you notifications that you may send out regarding things that have happened in the area or what you're looking for or something like that. But it also has, as Henry mentioned, the crime map, which is accessible to anybody to take a look to see what's happening where.
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Mayor. It's once they sign on, you can actually sign into any little community that you want to, whether you want to sign into St. Albert or Fort Saskatchewan or Redwater. You can pick which ones you get information and updates from.
So if you had family members in other part of the province, you could log into theirs as well, and you would find out what's happening in their neck of the woods.
Yeah, for the public. There's some private side of it that we have as well that's within just RCMP itself. And then there's the public ones that we put out that obviously the public's allowed to have, because, you know, like we're looking for a suspicious truck that's stolen in the area, that's freshly stolen, or just updates for the week, which is really nice for the public to see as well.
And I would assume, because it's an RCMP program and administered by the RCMP, that it would be an official source of information as opposed to Faceplant or Xbox or whatever the heck the other social media programs are that could be entered by anybody. These would be actual statistics or information, that sort of thing.
Yes, it'll be coming directly from the RCMP. So yes, it's not so much your social media. We do have a Redwater social media page on Facebook that we like to put out little media releases on, and it's kind of interesting. Our one girl that does it, she just loves putting little cartoons and stuff on there, so keeps up with our day-to-day stuff.
Are you getting lots of feedback off the Facebook side of things, or?
We're getting some. Even just today, they noticed that our flags were down, and we saw it all over Facebook that we have no flags. That's just because the chain snapped inside the pole.
Okay.
So it's being fixed. It just might take a day or two. But yeah, they went to put the flag back up from half-mast the other day, and because it's a plastic chain, it just snapped on the member, and obviously the flag came down. So. But people are noticing right away and making comments, so that's nice to see. And anybody in the public that's listening, if you want to have access to Rave and you need some help, just come by the detachment. We can help you log into it. And we also have like QR codes that could bring you right to our social media page, like Facebook page, because I heard it's fairly difficult to find on its own. So.
What would you like to see as priorities?
I think a lot of the priorities that we have set already, I mean, they seem to be the common factor, the crime reduction, property crime, rural crime. That's where we're seeing our issues, a lot of the stuff around here, especially when we get into like Thorhild area or just outside of town. And it's a high priority, that one, that crime reduction, and especially our prolific offenders. We were able to chase quite a few out of town, but some always do come back, or new ones arrive or appear. So that's always nice. And obviously our traffic. We know we have Highway 28 through our area. We've got 63 in our area. We've got a bunch of major ones, even 224 going south, Opal Road. Major collisions, multiple fatals. Having proper traffic enforcement is important. And the difficult thing with that is just being short-staffed a lot of the times, is trying to get the members out there to do it, and also be dealing with the regular files. So, but I think it's still a push that we need to keep going with traffic. And of course, community engagement. I mean, that's always been the RCMP, is that engagement with the public and getting out there, going to COP meetings, meeting with COPs, Real Crime Watch, community groups, schools, liaisons. It's nice. The public should see us out there and about, and encourage us. Like, come up, ask us questions, come talk to us.
Yes, Council. Maybe through to Mr. Van Buell, you talked about the survey that's online for the town. That's a community survey.
Yep, so we do have a survey, it's on our Facebook page and our website. So it's really simple. It should only take you 5-10 minutes. It's not complicated. There's 6 or 7 basic questions, and it gets to that, like exactly what does our community want the RCMP to be focusing on. And we kept it's kind of a checkbox, but there is a box there if we've missed something that somebody thinks is a bigger priority. By all means, write it in. And we're hoping that some of the results of that will spark some conversation at the coffee with the COP, so that we can maybe flesh out some of the things that we're hearing a little bit more, and help us put some parameters around what those priorities are, and help with when we talk about property crime as an example. Are we talking about theft? Are we talking about vandalism? What exactly are we talking about when we talk about property crime? Because that's a big target. So how do we narrow that down and maybe give a little bit more focus to it? And from my perspective, not so much last summer. Again, I think as you noted, this last year, a lot of that stuff was down, but the summer of 2024, I'm sure council can remember, our vandalism rates were, they were crazy, to the point where we were tracking costs, just for graffiti and vandalism and that kind of stuff. And over the course of 2024, I think we got into the 1 to 1.2% of taxes, or what it's costing us, right? And that, that doesn't sound like a lot, but the bottom line is we have limited budgets, And if we're spending 50,000 fixing up vandalism, that's 50,000 that we need to spend on something else. Right? That's just the reality.
Will there be some hard copies at the front counter should somebody not be real good on the computer, or?
We could certainly do that. We hadn't contemplated that. Again, the survey I think is easy to find and it's certainly easy to navigate. But if somebody comes in and says, hey, I want to do it, certainly we'll print something off for them and we'll get it that way.
What we can do as well during the Coffee with the Cop, we can present some stats, or I can, to show the public where our areas of concern are, where our top files are. I mean, fraud is a problem everywhere, but we're really not dealing with a major amount of it here. I mean, maybe 1 or 2 files a week, and they're pretty minor. And a lot of times now, people are catching on, and they're calling in saying, I just about got scammed. I got this, email, or I got this phone call. I want to know about it. So we just give them some information. But we can present those stats and kind of show the public what we're dealing with most, so that they can try to make an informed decision as well on what they want to see.
So I'm going to do the unthinkable here, and I'm going to ask each of council to figure out one priority they might have in the back of their mind that they think should be important for Sergeant DeHaan and blurt it out. I'll tell you right now, my personal concern is drugs. That's a long-standing problem, but I'm looking at the statistics that say if I'm not mistaken, you try methamphetamines once and you could be hooked forever on it. So that's my biggest concern, is the real hardcore drugs that might be floating around, sort of thing. So.
Yeah, as you mentioned, traffic's a big thing for me, the road especially. My wife had a close call there a month ago, and yeah, 28 is bad. I mean, stars flies over my house once a month, easy.
It's
So,
busier and busier too, like.
oh no, it's crazy. So yeah, anything we can do to help with that would be great, so.
Councilor Butcher?
Well, I live right on the highway. So I can tell you when I'm looking out my window, a lot of people after 5 o'clock are not going 50 kilometers. And I know it would be hard to set up speed traps, but yeah, I see a lot of that.
Which highway is that, sorry, that you're?
Highway 38.
Right across from Fast Gas, primarily,
Oh, okay.
right in town. Councilor Smith?
Well, I know that you guys typically run short-handed, but it'd be nice to be able to see some more vehicles through town once in a while during the day. Just give the residents a little better, feeling when they know you're around.
Councilor Cosby?
All of the above. No, I like the idea of taking care of the people that, the prolific offenders, those ones, because you find that they're the ones that are repeating. It's kind of like I won't say babysitting, but it's unfortunately that you have to look out after these individuals, but I think that's what helps them from reoffending repeatedly.
It does, and it really shows them that we're watching them. And you'd be surprised that all of a sudden one goes to jail for a little while because they're breaching a couple conditions, and all of a sudden one particular crime that keeps happening just stops for a while they're in jail. So it's pretty obvious to see.
Councilor Olson, your turn.
I will go property crimes, but it sort of links with what the mayor was saying with drugs too, because I think if you nail the drugs use and sale of or whatever in the area, you're gonna lower the property crimes as well. I don't, I'm the same, like all the above type thing, so.
Does that give you a start, both administration and operations?
Yeah, that starts me out pretty good, because this will count as like our first consultation on this. Gives me an idea where we're looking. A lot of it is pretty close to what we're doing already. So we can work with that, try to figure something out, and we can use that during our Coffee with the Cop session and explain to the public what the council is seeing. So.
Gentlemen, anything you'd like to give the sergeant as your priority?
That survey, could we put an ad in the paper where people can go look for that survey? the people know where you even have a survey for the town there, like, that's the first I've heard of it too, like,
I think we missed our deadline for the monthly insert that we have.
okay.
But it's certainly the sort of thing that people can start circulating themselves in their social media accounts, indicating that it's available.
Right.
Anything you think the police should focus on?
Was anything mentioned about break-ins in town here?
Kind of backs on the property crime, but it's a specific type of property crime, because it's not vandalism, it's not graffiti, it's not tipping over garbage cans, it's break and enter, so.
Talking about just like what happened to the Legion on Biddiscombe the other night there. Typical break into the building.
The other thing I was going to mention is our last council meeting, our last full council meeting. We had the quarterly stats that you had provided to council. You come every quarter and you give us that information, and it's in our minutes. And I don't know how many people actually go and take a look to find that, but you can actually find the statistical reports, from the horse's mouth information, every quarter on our webpage with the council minutes. So that's a place to look for the actual numbers.
I know some nights when we've driven around, you can drive down the street, all the lights are off in the house, you can tell they've gone night-night, but they forgot the garage door and left it open.
Yeah.
It's black outside.
Okay. Well, if that's a good enough start, I would like to thank you, gentlemen, for showing up and helping us out. And Sergeant Dehan, please continue to thank the members for their activities in the community and around us. Because I read a very interesting comment the other day on LinkedIn. There was a person who said, it's unfortunate that the bad guys don't know what the jurisdictions are for each police department, because they keep crossing those jurisdictions. And the traveling criminal is the one you have the most trouble with, because you don't know who they are.
Yes, usually like our stolen vehicles and that, it's always someone not from around here coming through and just trying to get passing through, and we end up picking them off, so.
Well, that'll start off the process for the next 24 odd days, and we look forward to Coffee with a Cop. You had a very successful one at Pioneer Club a couple of days ago. So congratulations on helping to put that together, because I know it's not always easy to have your people commit to that, because the phone rings and they have to take off. But they did an exceptionally good job. And I think there was a total of 28 people, 28 people in the room. And compared to most of the Coffee with the Cops, that's a big number. So thank you for making those arrangements.
And there was a lot of interest at the one at the Pioneer Club.
Yeah, that's what
A lot of interest.
A lot of interest in it.
All right. Thank you very much. Anything else for them before I kick them out? No? Thank you, Council, and thank you very much to our guests for their attendance tonight. That takes us to 8.1, our emergent spending CAO authorization options. And Mr. Van Buell, let's start with you.
Sure. So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, if we remember back early January, we had an expenditure that we had to come back to council and get authorization for after it happened. And as Councillor Smith very rightly pointed out, it puts administration in a bit of a conundrum where not funding it can cause damage and potential reputational harm and or liability on behalf of the town. But it also puts the CAO in a position where, quite frankly, he or she can be liable for the expense, as it was not approved by council. And certainly not lost on administration in any way, shape, or form. The basics here are, administration's only authorized to expend what's in the budget or as per authorization by council. And right now, there's the ability through the CAO bylaw for the CAO to move dollars from one area of the budget to another area of the budget to balance, providing that we don't go over the total amount expenditure in the budget. And that's certainly very much appreciated because, you know, we put budgets together in September of, you know, in this case, September of 2025. We have no idea what's going to happen in October of 2026. And so, you know, that flexibility is certainly required. What we don't have right now is we don't have the ability to expend funds without coming back to council first. What we've outlined here are, you know, I think the reasons why we want to do that. And we've given 3 options for the Corporate Services Policy Committee to kind of chew on at their next meeting in April. So the first option that we have for dealing with this issue is, first of all, revise the CAO bylaw authorizing the CAO to fund emergency expenditures as per an approved council policy. So it's really a 2-step. It's founded in the bylaw that says you can do this, providing you follow this policy. What would then go back to, and we would do it in conjunction, we bring the necessary amendments to the CAO bylaw, but we would also vet a policy through the Corporate Services Policy Committee to say, here's the steps you have to take, and here's what you can do, and here's what you can't do, and here's the reporting, here's those other functions that have to happen. The advantages of that are the option sets clear direction by council for everything related to emergency expenditures, including the provision of the CAO bylaw gives, and it gives clear direction as to authority limits, the reporting requirements, and it gives both council and the CAO legal protection against claims of unauthorized expenditures. The disadvantages of this one, and I'm biased on this one, obviously it is the recommendation. It has very few disadvantages, and the one being, it does not give the ability to fund an emergency of any level and will still require special council meetings to deal with expenditures that exceed the limits imposed by the council policy. And those limits, I think, are going to be the key discussion for council to have is, well, you know, what's an appropriate limit for the CAO to have to fund those emergencies. The second option is revise the budget process and add a CAO contingency to the budget. And this would then form those constraints. There may still be a desire by council to have a policy in place to make council aware of when the contingency is used and may still necessitate a policy outlining the provisions as we've talked about in option 1. So there's still some control in this option. There's still some control by council to say, okay, there's a CAO contingency, but this is the reporting structure coming back. Again, the advantages makes the funding of the expenditure clear in the budget. And what it does is it gives council at the time of budget the ability to determine funding at that point in time. If council doesn't want it to be funded from, quote, taxation, there can be a corresponding revenue item from a reserve to offset that. So that, in effect, what that would mean is it would have a 0 tax implication on that year. The disadvantage is that funding is from taxation, and you've heard me say this, you know, a whole bunch. A $50,000 contingency addition to the budget would be an approximate 1.4% tax increase if it's not got a corresponding revenue source from somewhere. So that's one of the disadvantages of option 2. Option 3 is just remain status quo and give direction to administration that all expenditures not included in the budget will need to have prior council approval and may require special council meetings as required. So this is, you know, the status quo with a, you know, a gentle or maybe not so gentle reminder to the CAO that, You know, if it's not in the budget and it's going, you know, you can't move money around within the budget, then you have to come back to council in the form of a special council meeting prior to the expenditure happening. Again, the advantage is it clearly keeps council in very firm control of those dollars. And again, the disadvantages, and we talked about this at the time of the report in January. At times, expenditures are just not budgeted and are required to ensure the safety of residents, users, and staff, to protect our infrastructure from further damage, or to ensure critical service levels are not unduly interrupted. And you know, I'll give you an example of something that might not be budgeted. We've had a big snow year. Now, the nice thing about snow removal is it kind of splits two budget years, right? Being December and January. The way we do this right now is we don't have a real good tracking mechanism, so our only ability is to move dollars within budget. And if we can't, like at the end of the season when we do our final count, there may be a time where we have to come back to council and say, you know what, we've already spent this money and there's no way that we're going to make it up in another budget, right? And that, again, that puts the CAO and our general managers at a real awkward position, because it's hard to have that exact, you know, what are we at, until the end of our year where we go, okay, this is how much we've spent, our year end was this, and now we're into this and our snow removal. So for the reasons I've outlined through the options, what administration is recommending is that administration recommends option 1 goes back to the Corporate Services Policy Committee for further fleshing out, especially on the policy side, what those guidelines are, what those amounts are, and so that based on the discussion that the Corporate Services Policy Committee has, we can bring a recommendation on the policy and the CAO bylaw back to Committee of the Whole meeting, and then up to council for final approval. The one thing I will note here, even though the recommended option right now is option 1, when we get back to that policy committee, you know what? The policy committee may go, you know what? It's maybe option 2 is the better option, or option 3 is the better option, and that's certainly within their purview. Going back and talking about option 1 does not limit them to only option 1. It is still wide open for that policy committee to come back and go, and maybe there's an option 4. I don't know.
Councillor Smith?
I'd like to make a motion that council direct administration to draft the necessary guiding documents to implement option 1, CAO expenditure authorization policy, and refer the draft to the Corporate Services Policy Committee for review and recommendations.
Council? The only, go ahead, Councillor.
So, we do have the ability to do that under the MGA. Right? And even the CAO bylaw has that caveat in it. So I guess I'm just wondering what would advise us that's different. Right?
So the CAO bylaw right now allows the CAO to move dollars within the budget as long as they don't go over, right? In the case back in January, we went 15 grand. It's impossible for us to say we're gonna be able to move 15 grand and not be over at the end of the year, right? Because as soon as we're over and we've got an expenditure in our budget, that is, and let's say we didn't take this to council, right, back in January. If the end of the year comes and we go, okay, we're over budget, and there's this $15,000 capital expense that isn't in the budget, that's where the real risk happens, right? And Councillor Smith rightly pointed out, council at that point in time could really go, it wasn't approved by us. I guess, you know, the CAO and administration is forking out the $15,000. So what this does is it gives us the ability to make those expenditures outside of the budget, because that would be added to the CAO bylaw. With the caveat that, providing we follow the guidelines in the policy. So council then has a policy that says this is how we deal with emergency expenditures. And council can say, you know, you have a maximum of 25,000 or 20,000, 15,000, whatever, and here's how you've got to report it. Here's the timelines you've got to report it on. Here's what we need to know. Here's the parameters that you got to operate in when you're using this policy for emergency expenditures.
So to me though, then that sounds like a contingency, so that sounds like option 2. It doesn't sound like option 1, right? Because option 1 is basically saying, we're gonna use, you know, reserves or whatever it is that's already inside the budget to pay for whatever. Option 2 is, you know, here's your $50,000, and we're gonna add, that's just gonna be for emergent items or whatever.
I think and I don't think you're wrong. I think the big difference though between option 1 and option 2 is option 2, at budget time, you're gonna identify what that funding source is for the expense, right? Because you're gonna have, option 1 doesn't have that. Option 1, we would have to outline that in the policy, right? Because we might go, we're going to try and get it into a grant, we're going to, there's a number of different options that are available to us. With option 2, it's laid out, it's either gonna be coming from taxation. or
No fair.
something else.
So, my question is, we're making the motion to do a recommendation is option 1, right? That's what the motion is. So if we're considering one of the other 3 there, right, then making the motion at this time doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
But it's referring it back to the committee, right, to further flush out.
Sure, yeah, to flesh out option 1,
Well,
right?
I think, you know, what I didn't put in the report, but what I verbalized is, it doesn't stop the committee from going, you know what? We've tried to flesh out the, you know, dot our i's and cross our t's on option 1. But now that we have a deeper dive at it, maybe we want option 2, or maybe we want to stay with option 3, and that's what it'll come back to.
So then I say we amend the motion to say that.
Review the options.
To review the options, and then if the committee comes back with a variation or a hybrid of the 3 or whatever it looks like, right, then we can debate that, right?
I think too, Mr. Van Buell, if I'm not mistaken, option 2 would require us to fund that each and every budget. We would have to, each time we do a budget, we would have to put that money in. And if at the end of the year, it's not used, then it would become a reserve, which could then fund the next budget cycle, but it becomes a bit of a paper chase to follow that money.
So the disadvantage I see there, though, is say if we do that, and it comes time when we're reviewing the budget in September, the first thing to go, when we're gonna look for advantages, you know, for citizenry, is gonna be that.
Anybody else? I have one other question, and it's strictly in the wording. I know the Municipal Government Act isn't necessarily the clearest, but some time ago, the Council of the Day prescribed a $100,000 first step expenditure for emergency management situations. So now they're including that language of for an emergency in 248.1, and I'm wondering how that will impact our previous resolution for emergency management. And do the two get married or considered at all at the same time?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, as the CAO, I wouldn't want to rely on the emergency management piece to backstop my decision to spend 20,000 on a heat unit, right? And so I think that's where they split, right? An emergency and emergency management, you know, you go back to the Emergency Management Act and what that all entails, and I think it would be a stretch to marry those two under the same guise.
And I was just worried about if there was a crossover between those two motions, sort of thing. Go ahead, Councillor Smith.
I'd like to amend my motion. I'd like the motion to read that council direct administration to draft the necessary guiding document to implement the CAO expenditure authorization policy and refer the draft to the Corporate Services Policy Committee to review and recommendations.
Does that help a little bit, Councillor
Yeah,
Brown?
you betcha.
Yeah, or Deputy Mayor Brown, I keep that Deputy Mayor.
No, that's
Anybody else? Okay, not seeing anything, then I'll call that question. All in favor? And no opposition, so that's carried. Thank you.
We'll have our fight with you in April. Wastewater
infrastructure spot repairs, 8.2.
Oh, let me just pull it up here, Mr. Mayor, sorry.
We were back in your hands.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, we had a brief discussion about this at the Infrastructure Committee earlier in February. Here's the Coles notes. Administration's been working on the engineering portion of 47th Avenue for about a year, or close to a year. And we've always talked to council about it being somewhere between a 3 and a 4 year phased project, starting with either water or wastewater and kind of doing, you know, the water in 2 years and then the wastewater in, you know, the sanitary sewer wastewater in another 2 year block. Here's what's happened, I think, in the last 4, maybe 5 months. There's been a number of emergent issues that have really come to light and are really, they're taking a fairly large chunk out of our operations budget for flushing and maintenance, et cetera. And there's 5 of them, but I'll be honest with you, one of them, we can't wait. Like, we have to do it. And it's the one up in the trailer, what's the crescent? Eastview Crescent. We've got a service line sag. It's just not going into the main line properly, and it's on our side of the whole issue, and it's causing our residents some concern. And you know, I'm not going to sugarcoat this one. This is one where we're going to have to move some money around. It's not a big number. We think we've got a reasonable fix that we can work within our budget. But we also have the one on 51st Avenue that we talked about earlier this year, where we've got a sanitary sewer line coming out of houses that are basically dead ending, and you know, so there's a reverse grade on them and causing us some issue. It's not going to be a cheap fix. We also have a catch can basically on Main Street here, right by Kicks. That's it's a manhole, and the bottom of it is basically deteriorating. We're starting to see gravel come into the sewer line, and it's causing issues. So we have to keep flushing that. The problem is the more we flush, the more gravel we get rid of, et cetera, et cetera. And then we have the same issue on Highway 38, and that's going to be the big repair. We have not contacted transportation yet to give them the bad news about what's underneath their highway. That'll be this year or next week's project when Mr. Mahaya, Diego, is back. He had
We're gonna let him call.
probably got a better. Well, he's got a better idea. We've sent some of this camera footage, and it's concerning. So, I guess this report is more of a, kind of a heads up, and how do you want us to proceed? Right now, we're leaning towards doing some more intense work to figure out what the costs are and what we can get done in 2026. And instead of starting 47th Avenue in 2026, probably taking care of some of these emergent issues and take some pressure off of our off of our residents, because it is causing them concerns, and B, take some pressure off of our operations budgets to free up, because we are Cameroning and we are flushing, not every week, but at least monthly right now, and have been for the last 6 months or so. So it's not just, it's the time that our staff are being taken away from other things as well. And we know there's problems, so. I guess, right now, in our budget for 2026, we budgeted a debenture of 550,000. I'm pretty sure that would take care of certainly the 4 that are listed here. Probably wouldn't even need that much, depending on how Alberta Transportation wants us to deal with Highway 38. So what we're recommending is that we do some more work on this and come back with what our risks are and what, and kind of put 47th Avenue on hold until we assess those risks and come back to council with a full report.
Councillor Cosby?
I'll move to direct administration to bring back cost estimates and further evaluations of areas requiring maintenance and evaluate risks associated with repair deferral versus moving ahead with the 47th Avenue wastewater project as identified in the 2026 capital budget.
Thank you. Council? Go ahead, Councillor Olson.
One by kicks, I don't think we did that when we did the 49th Street rehab, did we?
I don't believe so.
No, I don't think we came up that far. We came up to the intersection, but not across it. Because that was surprising me when I read it. It was like, it was only done like 12, 15 years ago, so.
I think there was a lift put around it, the catch basin, get the repairs, because, and I'm not pointing fingers, I think at the time they thought, nah, it'll be okay. But like everything underground, when you don't see it daily, all of a sudden it starts to come up, and like I said, we're starting to see some significant deterioration of that. Now, that being said, the big concern is Highway 30. Because that's probably not just a catch can repair, it's probably, or the catch basin, or the manhole. It is probably also about 90 to 100 meters along down the highway. So that's why it's gonna be significant. We all know what the highways cost to rebuild, we just did that.
Well, sorry. The other thing too is that because it's on the provincial highway, they're gonna require an awful lot of traffic control and barricading and all of the stuff that you wouldn't normally see on a residential street for something of comparative size, so.
I mean, that being said, typically we're still in a 50K zone, so it's no different than our residential streets. But I think the bigger issue is you're gonna have heavier traffic on that road. That's gonna be a bigger concern for everybody, right? And you're gonna be probably down to it. I'm guessing probably 1 lane, which means you're probably gonna have to have some traffic control device or some kind of detour or, something in place, and all that, the portable red light, green light thing, all that does is add cost to, whatever has to be done.
Yeah, because they'll definitely want that because of the high wide load corridor.
Yeah, and we won't want detours through Main Street, obviously. Like, we won't want people cutting off fast gas and going around. Obviously, light duty vehicles will probably take that route, but we certainly don't want our heavy truck traffic doing that. That'll cause us a whole bunch of other grief, right?
Or the D11 coming from Fort Mac to the city.
Any other questions regarding this? I'm interested to see the answer for the dead-end pipe. Anyway, nothing further from council. I'll call that question. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay. And then MWAP grant, Transportation Economic Corridors email.
It's attached.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, on Friday, thought it was Monday morning, but because I got it at 4:35, I was probably already, or 4:25 or whatever it was. I was probably gone already. So I looked at it yesterday morning. Basically what this is saying is that our MWOP grant has been evaluated right now. There were some things, and we were aware that this was a possibility, that they would look at some of the things that we had in our grant that weren't eligible under AMWOP, which is certainly what happened. So now what they're saying is, based on the grant that we provided, we're eligible, the project eligibility is $10 million, of which we're eligible for 60, we're eligible for 6 million and some change. But the question for them is, based on, their evaluation, that, there's certain parts of the project that aren't available, are we still prepared to go forward? Here's our dilemma. Our dilemma is, if it's, if doing the lift station and the lagoons is still a $10 million project and we're only gonna get 6 million, that means we gotta come up with 4 million. And we all know that 4 million isn't an easy number to find. I think saying no at this point in time would be a bit risky. If the province is prepared to give us between $5 and $6 million, I think that gives us some ammunition to go back to the feds with whatever project they have and go, okay, so we're not talking about a $15 million project now, we're talking about a $10 million project. How can we make this work? Do we, are you still, is a $4 million number easier to swallow than a 7 or 8 million? And how do we do this? Because I think it's easier to get money if you have, it's easier to say match this if we've already got the matching, rather than asking one, when you have zero, and ask, well, if we get this, will you give us this? Now we can go, we have this, now can we do this? And as much as I know the province doesn't like this, if it doesn't work, we can always say, you know what, we didn't spend a dime. We've had to back out. They don't like doing that, because if they said yes to us, that means they've said no to somebody else. And I know how I would feel if I was on the no receipt, and then all of a sudden you find out that some municipality didn't use $6 or $7 million of the funding available. But quite frankly, I think we have to be a bit selfish here and figure out what we can do, instead of keep talking about what we can't do, and figure out how to make this work. That's
Councillor Smith.
the council.
I certainly think that we should continue down this path. And I guess the only question I have is, can we get enough done to do what we need to do for $10 million?
So it's going to create some benefits to us. One, our lagoons will get to that capacity where we can actually add some capacity, as well as our lift station. And that's what kicked, in all fairness, that's what kicked this whole thing off to begin with, right? We know we have a lift station that's under capacity. We know we have some issues that are at our lagoons that need to be taken care of, and we can take all of that. So we might not be adding capacity because we don't have the connector lines and all of that. But by far the biggest part of this is that 10 million for the lagoons and the lift station. It's still going to leave us $3 to $4, maybe $5 million short for realigning the industrial line and figuring out how we're going to add some capacity, whether that be on the west end or the south side of town, so that we can actually bring some more service lots on. But it's a whole lot easier if a developer comes in and we can go, okay, so and I'm just throwing some stuff out in the air here. If we upfront some off-site levy costs, right? Where then, if we're getting some development, we can replenish that, we can use that dollars, you know, to replenish some of our offsite levies. The bottom line here, I think, you know, we swung for the fences with the SHIFT grant and the MWAP grant. I don't know how we're gonna do this without some kind of pain. We just gotta figure out how we can minimize that, you know, and when I say pain, the financial pain, I'm out of ideas on how we do this on somebody else's dollar without us, you know, taking some risk. And I think that's the part that council has to be comfortable with. What I wanna make clear is moving forward right now, and saying, yep, we're gonna continue the process. Until you spend those dollars, you don't have to match them, right? It's once you commit to spending those dollars, that's when you gotta match them. That's when the rubber for us is really gonna hit the road. But again, I think it's a lot easier to go to the feds and say, we've got 6 million, how can you find, you know, 2, 3, you know, because quite frankly, if we get to 3, if we get to 9, I don't think it's all borrowing. I think there's some way to use our LGFF funds over a period of 3, 4, 5 years to limit that, you know, any borrowing, and it may not be any borrowing at all, you know, between offsite levies, some other things. I think if we get to 9 or 10, or even 9, I think we can make it work. But until I know what the conditions are for the dollar, for any of the grant dollars, I can't tell you how we make that work.
The only other question and concern I guess I have is, they're still basing this on 2115 population. I mean, we've got to be between 25 and 26. I mean, there's nothing in town that's available, everything is sold, everything is full. So we went down from 2192 down to 2115. You know,
So the only way we can combat that is to do our own census.
If I'm not mistaken, there is a federal census this year.
Yeah, I think so.
And so maybe the offshoot to that is we campaign very hard to make sure everybody answers that census, as opposed to losing some of that money from granting, and as well having to fund our own, because I would assume our own is going to be fairly pricey.
Yeah, and quite frankly, the
25 last time.
cost of doing a census is, I mean, it's not easy to do, but the logistics of doing it are much harder than funding it. They're not easy to do. They take time and they take staff.
Yeah, it's just not counting.
Yeah.
I guess the only problem we have is, since the feds took the teeth out of it, people don't go to it.
I honestly think one of the other things is we've worked very hard at getting the province online. If this does come to fruition, it's going to be really, really hard to say no thank you. That's the other part.
The next time we come saying, hey, this is a priority for us, it'll be tough for them to take us serious if we go, hey, what did you do with that last 6 million? Oh, that's right, you sent it back. Right.
And the other thing too with the province is they will fund as we spend. They won't give it to us in advance, so.
So does it work the same way for the 4 million then? So if they're gonna, eke it out as we go, so if we need to do our matching part, it's 4 million, can we do the same thing?
And again, the cash flow is something that Allegra and I need to chat about, but that's gonna be, that could be part of our risk where we have to use our line of credit at times, right? And the province, and correct me if I'm wrong, Allegra, but the province is much quicker at turning around grants than the feds. The province, 90 days?
So we're actually in an example right now. So with the STIP grant, we received the last invoice, or the last significant invoice. It was like $430,000. I submitted all the documents today, and we are expected to get payment within 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, so they turn it around pretty quick. The feds, I know, are notorious for 90 to 120 days, right, before anything kind of moves out of their bank account.
Am I incorrect, Mr. Van Buell, on our shift grant, we discussed the fact that the federal grant dollars allowed us to circulate the money because the feds pay in advance, under shift anyway?
That was our understanding under SHIF, was that they send money in advance. The province doesn't, right? The province does it on invoicing. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't know why they do that, but, I mean, good for us if they do, but somebody's gonna catch on at the feds sooner or later. Having a couple extra $1 billion in their bank account for an extra half a year is probably advantageous for them, rather than sending out checks and letting municipalities stick it in their bank accounts, right?
So would you like a yes comment from council?
Yeah, basically, are we going ahead? All in favor? And I apologize for the lateness, but I've got to get back to Transportation Economic Corridors to say, hey, are we still prepared to go forward with a $10 million project? I can't make that decision by myself.
Okay. What does council think? Go ahead, Councillor Butcher.
I think we have to go ahead with this. If we put it off any longer, it's just gonna pile up on us, and we'll be in just a conundrum.
How long have we talked about the lift station?
About 24 years?
10 years, yeah. Okay. I'd look for a motion from council to direct administration to follow up with a positive response under MWOP.
I'd make that motion.
Okay. You've got that language okay, Elizabeth? Further discussion? Fingers crossed, I'll call a question. All in favor? No opposition, that's carried. Agenda item 9, Ludo admin briefing. Mr. Van Buell, are you touching base on that?
Mr. Mayor, as Miss Lane is on vacation right now, she gave this to us ahead of time. I would answer any questions that I can right off the top of my head, and if not, I would get back with answers to council for the next
Okay.
council meeting.
Any inquiries from council on Ludo? Okay. Operations briefing. You're stepping in for that as well, sir?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of council, again, I apologize. I actually sent an employee home today. He wasn't feeling very well. And I tried to go through this report earlier today. There's a lot here. Again, I would reiterate the same thing. If there's any specific questions that you have, I can certainly get them answered for the next meeting. And the alternative here is that we can have Mr. Davison go through it at the next council meeting rather than tonight, at council's wish.
Anything through to Mr. Van Buell for Mr. Davison's follow-up? I do have one that's a concern for me. He made mention in his report about the leak into one of the offices. I'm not sure exactly which office he was talking about.
Pembina Place.
Yeah, at Pembina, whether it was the one on the second story community services side, or if it was the one under the bleachers. But the one under the bleachers is the one that concerns me, because I know a lot of years ago we spent a whole pile of money resealing that A-framed or slanted roof section of dressing rooms, because the snow pushes the roof vents off, so they put some supports above those. So I just want to make sure that everybody's aware that those supports need a little bit of care.
Mr. Mayor, I'll certainly ask the question. My understanding was it was an upstairs office.
Okay.
That was my understanding, but I will certainly pass on the concern, and I will double check the answer to that.
Because for whatever reason, they built the two add-ons differently. The roof structure on the golf course side is totally different ventilation process than the one on the east side. And those little roof vents shear off, so. Anything else? Okay. OH&S Corporate Services Report. Mr. Davidson isn't here. Mr. Van Buell, I doubt very much if you're gonna tell me this. I think it's Ms. Tingley for the corporate services.
H&S report now, Mr. Mayor?
Oh, sorry. OH&S I thought was Mr. Davison as well. Go ahead.
Sorry, so, happy to report that, the reason this is now in is we do have, Jennifer Beezer, doing this work for us. She's she's doing a fantastic job for us, and we just wanna make council aware, you know, what we're doing with our OH&S, program. You know, one of the things, and I'll say this today, you know, we have an employee who's leaving at the end of the week, and I had the opportunity to talk to the employee, you know, just as a bit of an exit interview. And one of the highlights that he brought up, you know, from his time at working, 16-year employee with town. His recommendation to me was continue on with where we're at, with where we're going with our OH&S program. You know, from his perspective, it was well overdue to get some attention, and to not take our foot off the gas. His thing was, you know, too many times these programs, they'll get momentum, and you know, you'll be going great guns, and then you'll take your foot off the gas and they'll slide back, and you gotta hit the gas pedal again. And his comment to me was, don't take your foot off the gas. You know, that, again, I've said this to council many a times on our OH&S. It tells me we're having the right discussion in our organization. We're having, you know, we've got the right thought process in place. Now it's just dotting i's and crossing t's and making sure that we're following it up with paper, right? We're papering everything. And the other part of this that I wanted to bring to council's attention, so we haven't been core certified for a while. And one of the things that the Joint Occupational Health, the JOHSC, the Joint Occupational Health and Safety Committee, has come back and is recommending is that we do get that core. Again, tells me we're having the right conversation, and now our employees are having core, and you know, that safety's starting to come from the bottom up, and that's a good sign for us. So other than that, I'd certainly answer any questions that come out of this report, but again, we're starting to get the right paperwork in place so that we can get our core. What I want to make 100% clear to everyone, and especially our employees, is core is the result, like getting your core certificate is the result of doing the right things. It's not the goal. The goal isn't core. The goal is to make sure that we send people home in the same shape or better than we got them. And if we do that, and we have the right conversations around doing that, core becomes the result of that, not, it doesn't drive it. One of the things that I do want to talk to council about, and we'll talk about it in our budget, but I want to plant this seed right now. One of the benefits of having core is There is some financial benefits. They're relatively minor, but you start to get discounts on your WCB rates, et cetera, some of those things. What I want council to start thinking about is, my belief is that those savings should drive our program. We should be reinvesting those savings back into our OH&S program in some way, shape, or form. And how do we do that? I'll have, and we will have the discussion with the JOHSC on how we do that. But we'll have recommendations once we get our core certification for council. And our goal right now is to be core certified by the end of 2026.
Any questions through to Mr. Van Buell? Go ahead.
I'd like to know where we stand on this verbal stop work order as well as the other two verbal orders that were given by the province.
Awesome, I knew you were gonna ask that.
So that's what's presented in front of us.
Yep. So those two orders we've taken care of. So there was, they were relatively minor, and I'll say relatively minor. They were, on one, there was a manhole where we did wastewater samples from. And we didn't have the proper protection around those fall areas. So we either had to design some fall protection, some barriers, or we had to find a different place to take the samples from. We're in the process of doing both. We now take the samples from a different place, but we are in the process of getting something designed so that when we do have to open that manhole, we have that fall protection sitting there. What was the other one? Pardon me?
Iowa Station
Oh.
and fit testing.
Yeah, so the fit testing we completed yesterday. So all of our employees did the fit testing yesterday. So that's complete. And the eyewash station, we're getting the 15-minute one, but on a temporary basis, we've modified, or we're going to be using the shower area in the shop. So,
I think in Mr. Davison's report, he confirms the eyewash is in. So.
and again, so these came out and we had to deal with them relatively immediately. So we had to kind of come up with the immediate plan, and I know the eyewash station was something that we ordered right away. And I know it came in, I just don't know that it's installed yet. I can't.
Anything else on the OH&S report? Looks like I also missed the facility schedule report. Any questions from council on that? It's fairly straightforward. Okay. Sorry, back to you. It's your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So you'll notice we start off with the January 2026 tax balances. It's a new year, so there's a new aging schedule. So those balances have changed. Note that 2026 includes the current tax penalty for January 1st, that 12% tax penalty, net of the January monthly pre-authorized payment plans that we have in place. I've also included December 25 and 24 balances. During the last committee of the whole meeting in January, there was a question regarding the difference in the penalty balances. So you'll see the totals from December 2025 compared to December 2024, resulting in that increase in the interest penalty. So we are about to kick off the tax notification process. That's going to be completed at the end of March. But as of now, the current tax agreements are in place, the 3 in total for the tax year that just passed. And we're still looking at making arrangements with those properties put on notification in 2025. So moving on to utilities, we did see a slight increase in utilities in arrears periods 2 and over, but we can attest that to the cold weather and maybe the increase in usage over Christmas. We had, if you'll recall, was it Monday? Last Monday was the snow event? Yeah. Today is Tuesday. So last Monday was that snow event. So we didn't have the 48-hour notices delivered because everyone was pretty taxed with that. But had we delivered them, we would have had 16. And as a result, no utilities were turned off the following Wednesday. I have the bank balances as of February 20th for your review. Moving on to the financial side, I apologize, I did not include the January 2026 financials because as I went to go print them off, I realized that I missed a very crucial step of uploading the TDS 2026 budget into there, so that will be at a later date. We're working on wrapping up the pre-audit financials and then the 2025 capital project overview for your review at a future meeting. But I've started, I'd like to start including the capital project financial update in the same format that you see during budget time, so you become familiar with this and you can get an up-to-date look at where we're at with the project status and the costs associated with it as well. So that is included for your review. So we have those upgrades at the fire hall for the security system improvements. We're just bridging the gap on the security system following the break-in last year. So that project was completed on Friday the 13th. This month. We also have, this is like the tiniest font ever, I'm just gonna make sure I'm lining it up properly. So the ice edger, that was an easy one to tick off, that was purchased. Came in just slightly over budget, but not by a material amount, we're not super concerned, because you'll see just below it, under budget. So the Pembina Place RTUs, so that was the amendment that we made last month for that unanticipated or unbudgeted repair. We also have, so at the time of this report, we had only received just under $20,000 this calendar year for the bridge rehab. Since then, we've incurred most of the costs for this project, and it's my understanding that it's complete now. We're just waiting on some final invoicing and holdbacks. So that concludes the capital project overview. Moving on to insurance renewal. So we received our renewal for 2026, and I'm happy to report that it came in $18,000 under budget, with a decrease of $1,900 over the previous year in expenses. So due to the volatility of insurance premiums year over year, we like to budget at a 10% increase over the year. It's just better to be safe than sorry, because you never know. And I've shown the differences in 22 through to 2026 just to demonstrate how volatile that can be. I think we can probably understand the jump between 22 and 23 with that 22%. AB Communities also provides some information annually that I've included, just some fun facts on our coverage and what's new for the year for your review. Just some other items. So as you know, March 1st is the deadline for the campaign disclosure statement and financial disclosures. So if I haven't received anything from you, I will be reaching out to you tomorrow in a timely fashion.
I got mine in.
So we've completed the LAPP year end and reported it. That was due at the end of January. We also submitted all the documentation for the Fortis franchise fee change. So we had a deadline of February 12th. We had to advertise in the Redwater Review on January 21st and 28th. I'm not too sure if you guys happen to see. It wasn't on our letterhead. It was like a little bit of a different format that was provided by Fortis. So we didn't receive any objections or concerns from residents during the time, so the fee increase is going to be effective April 1st. T4s have been completed and distributed. If you have not received yours, let's circle back. The 2026 assessment rule has been received from Tanmar Consulting on February 19th. Due to the timing of that with audit, I haven't had a chance to review it yet, but there will be a presentation from Tanmar Consulting. Typically that lines up with our financial statement presentations, April 16th or 21st. It's kind of lost now. It's probably on the other page. So that's something to follow. So coming up, we're currently, our audit fieldwork is underway this week. I use fieldwork in air quotes because we're trying out a remote audit this year, which is actually, it's pretty interesting. The portal, they put in all the requests. I submit all the documentation that way. It gets flagged if there's anything outstanding, so it's a pretty nice process. It did result in some savings for us with our quoted price this year because they don't have to make the trip out. So it's a trial run to see how that works, and so far on day 2, it's going well. So we're going to roll into following the audit. We're going to roll into preparation of the mill rate options. Our target for that is to start that process at the next committee at the whole meeting. Following our financial statement audit, we start the LAPP annual audit, preparing the tax recovery arrears list by the end of this month, or end of next month, as I mentioned. Also looking at preparing for the next corporate services policy committee meeting. Looking forward to the new addition that Mr. Van Buel talked about earlier in this meeting. And yeah, completion of the annual financial statement audit. And that concludes my report.
Anything through to Liston? Go ahead.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What's the MUSH account? What does MUSH stand for?
So I don't have a history in banking, but my understanding is it's some sort of like it's a banking term, and they just called it the MUSH account, and we actually call it the Moosh account because mush and moosh were too similar. So it's an ode to Ryan. But it's an account that came to be, so we had a general account that was compromised in 2023, if I'm not mistaken. And so we had to split it out. So now we have checks in one account that was formerly the Pembina account. And now we just have this MUSH account that it's just, we try and keep the checks separate. So if things are compromised, it's just entirely separate now. So every time we do a check run, we have to transfer from our MUSH account. I'll have to get some context because it is a weird name.
My understanding, it's municipal, utility, school, something in hospital, commercial and hospital, and it's a identifier by the Banking Institute, not by us. It's nothing that we do. It's the type of account that the financial institute can relate to. So,
It's the name we picked, so we let them run with it.
quick question. When we spend money to upgrade our security systems like we've done at the fire hall and what have you, do we notify our insurance companies to see if we get a benefit? So if we are alarmed and videoed and stuff like that, your home insurance usually goes down, so I was just wondering if you do that.
That's a really good question.
'Cause
I have not.
It's not a question they ask us.
No, it's not. And they have a really extensive
weird.
questionnaire.
Yeah.
They have some really weird
Now that
questions.
you say it, it's not a question they ask us, so.
You need the certificate to get the discount normally, so.
Because I know when the ATM went into Pembina, the policy went up $800. And so there's got to be some benefits for spending the money on security, so I just wonder.
No, that's a really great question because I went through the same thing personally. But they do have an extensive questionnaire, and,
And
it's
it's not-
wild to me that it's not because you should see the questions that they ask, but not this one. So we'll circle back.
And sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm shocked until you said it, because I've seen that questionnaire a number of times. I'm going, they don't ask that question, which is a bit strange.
They don't ask it on mine for the not-for-profits either.
No?
Maybe it's just for residential.
That's it.
Yeah.
They lose them money, they're not gonna pay for it.
Yeah. They're only going to ask you the
But on your
questions.
home, but when you do your home insurance, that's one of the first things they ask.
Yeah.
Smoke detectors.
Smoke detectors,
Some
you know,
pumps, some
alarms,
backups.
some pumps, yada, 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 right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, no, no.
We have some handout material from Alberta municipalities with respect to what's new in 2026. Basically, the insurance side of things that you've provided for us. Thank you for that. Any questions? It's got some good information. Project tracking on the capital budget you highlighted in your report. I was surprised when I saw the bridge line, and there was only like, well, not quite $20,000 claimed. I knew the cost of that project, but as you mentioned in your report, the invoices have now come in, so.
And that's for the calendar year too. That's not cumulative.
Okay. That makes more sense now, because I couldn't figure out why a contractor would be sitting on substantial monies.
Let us have it for 20 grand, we'll take it.
And then the other thing I had, not on the project, and then the council action report, February. Is that you, Mr. Van Buel?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Again, unless there's any questions, the loans to nonprofits, we're still working on. We've got to get a hold of the one group and say, hey, like, are you even interested in doing this? So back on my radar, and I apologize for it falling off. We've done, as you heard today, the plan for engagement on priorities. We've started that. Ms. Lane is, again, on holidays, but we're working on that amendment for the land use bylaw. The grant funding to Dr. Patricia Aloho is completed, was completed back in December. Our policy committee meetings, all of those have been scheduled, and we're looking forward to tomorrow, doing session 2 with Mr. DeHamel on our strategic plan priorities, and then once we have that and we know what kind of workload we've got, we'll be scheduling probably now into April for our strategic plan. And I would venture to guess it'll be later on in April, so we just have some vacation time coming up in the second week of April, and I don't think we'll be ready for the first week, so it'll be towards the end. Again, if there's any other questions, I'll certainly answer them, but you know, we're picking off most of these as we go. Yeah, we're pretty much up to date.
Anything?
So I think the one that I didn't see on here, and it should have been, is I have been in contact with Sean, what's his last name? He's on the joint use program. We have till June to get that sorted out with the school division for the joint use. So back on the radar after election and after budget, et cetera, and we'll be meeting here in the near future, and certainly bring in the joint use committee, which I understand is Committee of One right now, and we'll talk about what that looks like coming forward to a Cal meeting. I don't expect this to take much longer. We had a good start at it before we had to kind of put everything on hold. I would expect a couple meetings with Sean, and then maybe another couple meetings to dot i's and cross t's after we've checked with the council. We'll be ready to go. I don't see any big problems being ready to go for June. Sorry.
Anything through to Mr. Van Buell? There is a really old item, Mr. Van Buell, and I'm won't pull up here all of a sudden. Anyway, we had discussed, Councillor Spicer, as a matter of fact, had brought up looking at a policy with respect to having homeowners maintain a specific level of fire insurance for fire response. And I don't see any movement on that, and I was just wondering if there was any way it would be going to one of the policy committees.
Mr. Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember it being a policy. I remember it being an education piece. An education piece. So we could certainly talk to a committee to see how they'd like to do that. But again, it's less of a policy and more of an education piece.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to do something and put something together for council's consideration at the next Cal meeting, for sure. If that would suffice.
Yeah, because that's been hanging around for quite a while.
Yeah, and to be honest, you know, every once in a while it comes up with landowners where they get a significant bill. I think we dealt with one back in January where gentleman lives out in BC is going, you know, he talked to me on the phone, he goes, well, I pay taxes for that. And I said, well, in the end, our taxes provide the ability to respond, and the resident, the user has to pay for the actual response. Is kind of how it was explained to him. I'm not sure that satisfied him, but regardless, that's where we're at.
Look for motion from anything further to either Ms. Tingley or Mr. Van Buell. I'll look for a motion to accept the reports as presented. Thank you. Discussion. Call a question. All in favor? That's carried. Oh, Councillor Olson?
Motion adjourned.
All in favor?